Karen Brown and Matt Stump with One Touch Intelligence here, and we're going to talk a little bit about some wireless things that cropped up this week at the other trade show that was happening in the telecom world, and that was NXTComm in Chicago. That's kind of the latest, greatest big telecom show, and some pretty interesting comments from Randall Stevenson about kind of the role that wireless is going to be playing.
You know, honestly, I'm trying to get my arms around this argument and trying to understand it.
Yeah.
But Stevenson, the new chairman and CEO of AT&T, all of 3 weeks, kind of repeated the theme that he's been talking about in the last couple of weeks, that the wireless is the key to the consumer. The key to the consumer, the key to the home is wireless, and the wireless decision they make then begets every other decision, what they do for broadband, what they do for television, and even what they do for landline phone. Historically, that hasn't been the case, and even today when people move, it would seem like you would make, even if you have a wireless phone, you don't call your telephone provider first. Maybe your first decision is somewhere between a video and maybe increasingly a broadband provider. How much speed can I get? So it's an interesting argument if you're the leading cellular operator and you got the iPhone coming up in a couple of weeks. Maybe that's what the tune that you sing to Wall Street and to the public, but it seems a little almost strange or disingenuous, because I'm not sure that that's the case.
Well, and I think there is a significant question about the connection between wireless and the triple play of services. Do people actually think of them together? There's a fair amount of indication that they don't. As you point out, people, if they move, they don't necessarily change their wireless service. Even if, if they have a all-you-can-eat plan that's nationwide, there's no reason for them to change their wireless, their cellular number. So it's kind of unclear there, but it may also have to do with the fact that AT&T now owns all of Singular. They're the single owner, and they're really the only carrier that can say that. So, there is a logic that they're going to be able to get to some integrated wireless to wireline services faster than the other carriers and their, associated partners, because they're all one and the same company, although that doesn't necessarily have to happen if they're not very good about it.
Yeah, and the other thing is trying to grapple with, and I think that this kind of leads to thinking inside the cable industry and what this effect has on the MSOs, is the cable industry has historically sold a single service to an entire home.
Right.
One cable into the home, maybe you had a couple of additional outlets and other sets, a couple of DVRs.
Right.
One broadband pipe in for cable modem service, maybe you had a router and a number of PCs hooked up to it, but was one service to many in the home, as opposed to wireless, which is a one-on-one marketing service, a one-on-one relationship with the consumer. And I'm not sure the cable industry has gotten its arms around how to market a single product to a single human being versus the one product to the whole home.
Well, and that kind of brings in Pivot, the joint service that the cable operators and Sprint JV with Sprint Nextel are developing, and kind of hearing that they're going pretty slow on the rollout of Pivot, and there's some questions. Glenn Britt has been saying recently that he's not entirely sure about the role of wireless in the whole mix. So that's kind of an interesting item.
Well, I think they're dipping their toe in the water, obviously. Some of the comments that we got out of Orlando seem to be, we're sort of at not a plateau, but a mid-course reevaluation. Well, where are we? We've been out for 6 months, 9 months. What have we learned? What do we think the consumer wants? And I think there's a debate inside the industry. Is it more applications? I think there's a legitimate, maybe good argument that, what do we do? What do we do well? We bring in content. We are also local, so should we bring in a lot more local content? Some of these cable operators have their own local news channels. So do you make that phone and make your differentiation point the content that we have and the local content that we can provide on your phone, and link that up with your video and even broadband service?
And local is an interesting subsect in the wireless content realm. It's been tabbed by a lot of wireless providers as being kind of the one of the big goals to get to in terms of content. If you think about it, local content tends to impact people more. They're more interested in what's happening in their communities than they are in what's happening in the world. If you can drill some of that local content into the phone, you can make something that actually they could be wanting to look at in terms of content. And actually this week, Verizon Wireless came up with a deal. They cut a deal with some ABC affiliates to provide local content from ABC affiliates in about 50 markets. And this is their first big step into local, and they really, the other carriers being, AT&T now and T-Mobile and Sprint don't have that kind of local content. So it's kind of an interesting differentiator that we're seeing, and it'll be be interesting to see if Verizon can make some hay out of it.
You know, it seems like a lot of different companies, if you look at the top macro level, are trying a lot of different things with data services, music, video. You know, we know the data revenue numbers are going up, but a lot of that's driven by SMS messaging and so forth. And we know that, you know, most people at the end of the day use cell phones to communicate, to make phone calls and text, you know, and so, you know, we're not at that broadband stage. We haven't seen that breakthrough multi-billion-dollar application yet. Now, the iPhone, I'm thinking, just may show potentially a way. If there's lots of iPhones sold, and if lots of people are doing lots of things on it, if all of a sudden all the YouTube video is something people want to do, or if there is, you know, internet searching even on that edge network that's, you know, good enough for people, and that may provide some indications. But, you know, I think the wireless carriers still haven't quite figured out what's the next big money maker. And the cable industry is looking at one of a dozen possibilities, and I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error in the next 12 to 18 months.
I agree. Well, that'll probably do it for now for wireless, so we're just going to have to watch to see what sticks against the wall.